wasn't really planning on doing yet another video because I've been doing a bunch of CES videos, and this is a special thanks to Rob Maurer and Tesla Daily. I'll put a link to this in the description, but I did a screen grab from his very recent video that he just did, and let me see if I can shrink this down just a bit more. There we go, so we can see the models there. But anyway, this is some substantial further price cuts in China, so I'm going to run over these, which is what Rob did, and again, a huge thank you to him for putting this together and transferring it from yuan to US dollars. So that's actually very, very helpful. So anyway, if you look at the different models that are out in China, you can see the Model 3 rear-wheel drive and Model 3 Performance, and they don't have a dual-motor drive Model 3, and then you see the Model Y rear-wheel drive, which is not available in the United States, but anyway, and then the long range, which is a dual motor, and the Performance, which is a dual motor. So those are the ones that would be the most comparable to the rest of the world. But anyway, if you look over in the US dollars, I'm not going to attempt to do the yuan, but you can see that previous to this price cut, the Model 3, the cheapest Model 3 was $38,700, and after the price cut, it's $33,450, or a negative 14% price cut, or $5,250. And then you can see likewise that the other ones move down from there as well. That is the largest cut, interestingly enough, the cheapest model and also the largest percentage cut in price, but you can see that the other ones go anywhere from $4,200 up to $7,000. I guess it's not the largest price cut, but the largest percent price cut. But anyway, you can see that these other vehicles are down substantially. The only one that's not down at least 10% is the Model 3 Performance, interestingly enough. So that's only a 6% drop. But you can see that these other models are significantly reduced from what they were. And if you also add in the previous price cut that came about 2 months ago, which was on the order of, so this one's on the order of 5,000-ish, 4,000, 5,000. The other one was on the order of about 2,500 or 3,000. So you're looking at $7,000 or $8,000 of total price reduction for these vehicles, and that is a pretty substantial reduction in price. And so we're looking at something that's actually a pretty big deal here that has been reduced. So of course, I predict tomorrow, almost immediately, we're going to get the Tesla bears are going to come out and say that this shows that there is no demand in China, and that we've also recently seen the price cuts in the United States as well. Interestingly enough, $7,500 price cuts. Just coincidentally the exact same amount that the Inflation Reduction Act was going to do. Now, that price cut in the United States expired on December 31st, so as far as I know, there are no price cuts in the United States currently right now with the vehicles. So that was a very limited time offer from Tesla. I don't know if Tesla is still offering supercharging miles in China. They were also offering that along with $7,500. They were offering 10,000 free supercharging miles, which is not nothing. That was a pretty nice deal to purchase a vehicle, and if we'd been in the market, I would have definitely jumped at that. But anyway, so what are my thoughts about this, right? I guess that's the ultimate thing. You've got the facts now that we've had 2 significant price reductions in China. We've also had evidence that there has been softening demand in China. We've also had factories shut down in China, which again, the excuse was it was the end of the year, it was the holidays, things like that. But again, I don't know that that's necessarily the case. And then, of course, you had a temporary price cut in the United States, which has gone away. But given the fact that the Tesla Model Y, the base Tesla Model 3 will count for the new Inflation Reduction Act price cut or tax credit of $7,500. The Performance Model 3 will not. I think I said base Model 3. If I didn't, I meant base Model 3, not Model Y. Anyway, so the base Model 3 will count. The Performance Model 3 won't count. And then none of the 5-seat variants, which is the normal version of the Model Y, will count because they're all above the other price cap. And I did a video on this, so you can check that out if you're interested. But so only if you purchase the 7-seat option for an extra $3,000 will the Model Ys actually be able to take advantage of that $7,500 tax credit. So there is a chance that Tesla will either reduce the price severely in the United States also, like to try to get the base model, and there is potentially also there's been source code leaks of Tesla's website, which indicates that the 4680, the 279-mile range Model Y, the like super base version of that, may in fact be $60,000 currently, and Tesla might reduce that one down to $55,000. But the problem is, if that's using 4680 battery cells, that's not really the model that Tesla wants to reduce in price, because they don't want the demand to be that high, because they don't have enough batteries yet. So that puts them in an interesting little pickle here, because the standard, the Model Y long range in the United States, which is the dual motor version of that one's currently about $66,000 something. So that's $11,000 to $12,000 price reduction that would be necessary in order to get this vehicle under the amount of money that it would need to be to qualify for the credit right now in the United States. So that is a gigantic amount. That's even more by significant amounts. Although, interestingly enough, the Model Y long range is the one that Tesla dropped $7,000 in China. So if they could conceivably drop that vehicle down by $10,500 or $11,000 to just barely squeak underneath the price cap in the U.S., they would then be able to take advantage of the $7,500 tax credit. But you can see that Tesla is, at least in China, very obviously dealing with softening demand. Now, BYD is the obvious major competitor to Tesla at this point. They're a significant competitor to Tesla, but there are a lot of other automakers in China, and that's the other category, right? So you've got BYD as another behemoth, but then you've got a whole bunch of startups, and even if each of those only eats 2 or 3 or 5% of the market share, they're all collectively eating a lot. So I think that this is pretty significant, strong evidence that Tesla is seeing softening demand in China specifically. There has been a lot of evidence over the past few months, but this is getting a pretty strong indication that that's what's going on at this point. So we'll have to see what happens, and unfortunately, because of the way quarters and reporting works, we're not going to really see what happens with these price cuts until what would that be? January, February, March. So, the beginning of March, we will actually see, or is it the beginning of April? Sorry, January. Yeah, sorry, the beginning of April. My bad. Somewhere around April 2nd or April 3rd, we will actually get evidence of whether this has had a significant improvement. Now, we'll get some indications from people looking at the shipping yards and things like that, whether they're all empty because the vehicles are being sold. But I think it's going to take us about 3 months to find out whether this was a wise decision on Tesla's part. And Elon Musk recently in a Twitter Spaces said that he wanted market share over profitability. Even negative profitability was okay. So this would also seem to be evidence to me that Tesla is we are going to eat as much profit. It doesn't matter about profit. Even if we're making $0 on these cars, it's okay, because what we're after right now is increasing our market share. Now, this is obviously going to hurt Tesla's numbers, and it's going to be the kind of thing that's going to drive the stock price down. I personally think it's actually a good move. I think it's really important that Tesla continues to grow their numbers more than anything else, because again, it's one of those deals where, if you remember back in the early days with Amazon and they were competing against brick and mortar, their deal was to be as lean as possible, and it didn't matter if they didn't make a penny of profit on all this stuff, because what they were doing was they were creating this new market for themselves, and they were eating that market as they went. And so now they're much more of a common retailer, and their prices are much more balanced with what other manufacturers and brick and mortar stores are. And they're paying taxes on all of this stuff, which they didn't have to do in the early days. But in the meantime, that's the first place you think. For most of us, if we want to go shopping, the first thing we think is Amazon. So we look there first. And by the way, I have an affiliate link in the description if you're interested. So if you want to support the channel, just click on that and go shopping. But anyway, regardless of that, I'm just saying that you could see that Amazon's strategy was eat market share, get as much as you can. And here you can see that Tesla is eat market share, get as much as you can. And I believe that there is a strong incentive for them to do that, because especially in a recession, it's very difficult for other companies to compete. So if you think about it, we recently saw some information from Farzad, if I'm remembering correctly, that you could see that GM was actually losing $9 per vehicle on electric cars, and Ford was only making a few dollars per vehicle on electric cars, just as examples. So if you take auto manufacturers like Ford, GM, Volkswagen, other companies like that, and you look at their pricing power, if Tesla's making like 25 or 30% profit margins on these vehicles, gross profit margins, they can do these kind of drastic cuts. And by the way, remember that Tesla raised the prices very, very drastically over the last couple of years. If I think about it, if I go back to just, for example, looking at the Tesla Model Y long range, which is cheaper in China than it is in the US, but if you look back to December of 2020, when my wife and I purchased our Tesla Model Y long range, we purchased it for, I think, right around $49,000. So that is very much in line with what the Tesla Model Y long range in China right now is after these price reductions. So a lot of this is attributable to the fact that Tesla increased their prices drastically over the past 2 years or so, and especially in the last year, they really, really increased their prices. And so some of that, of course, was the fact that materials and things like that have gone up. But some of that was also just to reduce demand. And so now what we're looking at is Tesla being able to reduce the prices, whereas other EV manufacturers, I don't know so much about BYD, but pretty much everybody else in the world is operating on razor thin margins to actually losing money per vehicle. And they can't do this. They can't do a 10% cut. They can't even do a 2% cut without losing substantial money per vehicle. So Tesla this is a really wise move, I think, on their part, right? I'm sure it's not just Elon Musk. I'm sure Zach Kirkhorn has had a lot to do with this too. But they have looked at these numbers, and probably Tom Zhu has also had something to do with this as well. But anyway, they probably looked at these numbers and said, it's a recession. We're going to go in swinging, right? So if you think about a recession, one option is to become very conservative and say, I'm not going to make any changes, just hold on tight and try to stay the course and don't lose profits. The other one is to say, I'm going to come out, very aggressively and try to demolish the competition right now because they can't fight back right now. A recession is the time when everybody is the weakest and you can take out a lot of, if you want to, I don't know, I'm full of metaphors tonight. But anyway, my hotel room in Circus Circus, I'm full of metaphors for Circus Circus. But anyway, if you imagine Tesla being like the lion, and what they're doing is they're looking at the weak members of the herd, the ones that are being left behind by the herd, and they're like, okay, so there's a car company, and we can just and we can just take them and just demolish them, right? So if this move works, and it doesn't hurt Tesla too bad, and it really can't hurt Tesla too bad, because they can basically operate on zero margin for a very long time. They will then be able to make moves right now. This move is going to be unanswerable by most other companies, which means that Tesla is going to effectively destroy these companies. So that if we look at 18 months or 2 years from now, when we come out of the recession that we're going to be experiencing, or we are experiencing right now, when we come out of that, these other companies will be either bankrupt or a complete shadow of themselves, just barely hanging on. And so what we're looking at here is this is a really aggressive move. It's going to cause a lot of Tesla bears to come out, and probably the stock market will go down and all that kind of stuff. Again, not a financial analyst. But I think we're going to see a lot of bad press about this. But I think what we're going to see is, if we look back at this, if we could jump forward in time 2 years to January of 2025, we would look at this move as a defining moment for Tesla. The way that they are just suddenly going to be able to obliterate so many legacy auto manufacturers and probably quite a few startups at the same time. That's the kind of move that they're making, and I think that we're going to see the evidence of that come out in the next couple of years. So short-term pain, stock market pain, things like that, but long-term, if you want to hold the stock for a couple of years here, you will probably see some significant improvement. And by getting rid of by getting rid of the competition, you become, of course, the larger part of whatever pie is left over. So I think Tesla's in really good shape for this. I would love to know what you all think about that. Again, just a real quick video I wanted to do. I'm releasing videos about CES right now, so definitely watch those. Make sure you subscribe. I'm doing at least a couple a day right now, and in the meantime, you get to see the lovely background of Circus Circus in Las Vegas. All right, I hope everybody's having a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.